good things to say about it. So I did my master's there, and immediately after that, I got a job in Massachusetts. It's a very scenic place called Gloucester. That's I got a contracting job for a government. I worked in that company for around 3 years. And I have a little small stint with the Wayfair, which is an online furniture company similar to Amazon. And after that, I went back to Innovate again. This will come up maybe later on this, but see, after that, I joined my current company, which was initially called Affinova, and it got acquired by Neilsen. I worked with Affinova at, I don't know, 2013 era. So it's been around 8 or 9 years I've worked with them. Regarding my work, it's pretty much back and front end everything. We have a web application, which pretty much, so the idea is most of the Fortune 500 companies or bigger companies, they have lots of concepts. For example, yogurt, toothpaste, they want to introduce new items in the market, right? And they want to know how well their products will do. And we basically do all the research for them and let them know that, and suddenly out of their maybe how many concepts or ideas, which one would do best and what would be the revenue would look like. And so, and there's like lots of products around that. And we work on like subset of it. And Neilsen as a whole is like really big company, and we are like a small cog and like a bigger machine, right? So that's pretty much it for me, I think.
Okay, so अहिले चाहिँ right now you're working from home, right? Pandemic
Yes.
situation, pandemic situation कस्तो छ? Do you think things are moving towards normalcy or अझै work from home continue हुन्छ?
So it's been really interesting, right? Initially, usually the work culture, although USMA it's really lax, each office have their own kind of internal culture, which you get to know after a year or so. Hamra office ma usually in a week, 2 days people tend to work from home. Rest of the time they work from the office. Some people are pretty strict about coming at home, working in the office. So pandemically, obviously nobody could be in the office. And when like now the things are starting up, they actually did a survey, like how many people want to work from home versus how many people want to work from office. And it was pretty much 50-50. Like 50% of the people don't want to come to office anymore. 50% of the people want to work from office. So I'm on the 50% of the side where I want to work from home because of the kids and all. The interesting aspect of it is last time town hall the company town hall where they just announce what's going on with the company. During the pandemic, actually the company did really well, and they were actually suggesting like, hey, take some rest. So I think even though people are working from home, they're probably spending more time, more hours and work than working from my office. So yeah, that's the story here.
Exactly. It's just work from home भनिसकेपछि your workload increases even more, right? So कम से कम office time भनिसकेपछि office भनिसकेपछि there's fixed hours that you want to work हैन. तर अब घरबाट काम भनिसकेपछि चाहिँ पुरै दिनभरि नै occupied हुन्छ है. So यो पेन्डेमिकले गर्दा भनिसकेपछि अब है अब मेबी दिस अलिकति ब्रोडर क्वेसन भयो. ओभरअल जब मार्केटमा चाहिँ स्पेसली फर भनौँ न डेभलपर्सहरू अथवा जुन चाहिँ आइटी सेक्टरमा लाग्ने छ हैन, डु यु नो एनी अफ योर फ्रेन्ड्स हु हेभ लस्ट देयर जब बिकज अफ दिस पेन्डेमिक?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I guess tech sector was the safest sector, especially because most of the people can just work from the home, and we have the infrastructure, right? Most of the application now runs in cloud, so you don't have to be there in person to make sure that things are working. So we initially did not get impacted that much. We had a temporary furlough. Basically, furlough भनेको चाहिँ you are working for the company, but every Friday of a week you are not supposed to work, so that the company can not write check for that day. It was a forced furlough, and we did that for about 6 months because the revenue was declining during that time. Pretty much all the companies were not doing well. But after the revenue kind of made the recovery, then they immediately stopped that program.
Okay. So मैले अलिकति पास्टको कुरा गरेँ दिवेन. जस्तै you after completing a bachelor's degree होइन अब आइटी नै पढेको भयो त्यसपछि चाहिँ जबमा जानलाई चाहिँ सुरुमा अब वेल्डिङबाटै स्टार्ट गरेको थियो होइन वेल्डिङमा जाँदाखेरि सुरुमा चाहिँ एउटा फ्रेस ग्रेजुएटलाई चाहिँ प्रोफेसनल वर्किङ इन्भाइरोमेन्टमा जाँदालाई चाहिँ त्यो एकाडेमिक ग्याप के फिल भएको थियो
So luckily I didn't have gap. हाम्रो final हुँदाखेरि I had already started applying and they were already interviewing. So there was not much gap for me, which is helpful. The memories of the courses are fresh in your mind. But sorry, Abhinav, what was your original question?
युए प्रोफेसन तिमी कुन ल्याङ्ग्वेजमा प्रोफेसन थियो त्यतिखेर चाहिँ at that moment प्रोजेक्ट कुनमा गरेको थियौ?
Yeah, that's interesting. त्यति बेला PSP was like the rage. Everybody was doing PSP. So I had taken a project where I was doing, I think, NCIT University को no, NCIT को चाहिँ के भन्छ रुटिनहरु बनाउने त्यस्तो खाली PSP मा एप्लिकेसन बनाएको थियो, वेब एप्लिकेसन, and pretty much like a intranet portal for like our college kind of idea behind that, right? So I had picked up PSP at that time, and which came handy. In a whirling company, they were using PSP, so I could kind of make that connection with the whirling people that, hey, I've actually done a project in PSP and I know a bit of JavaScript and stuff like that. On top of that, I had also done some minor courses outside of my regular bachelor's though. I don't think that helped, but it's just something to add to that.
Okay. So अहिलेको फ्रेस ग्रेजुएट्सहरूलाई नि अब जस्तै अब नेपालको पनि अब यो वर्क फर सम टाइम अब त धेरै टाइम भयो तर पनि नेपालको मार्केटको आइडिया छ सफ्टवेयर डेभलपमेन्टको होइन युएसको पनि छ है सो वाट इज यर रेकमेन्डेसन क्या जस्तै तिमीहरूले चाहिँ ब्याचलर सिक्ने आउँदाखेरिसम्ममा चाहिँ डु यु सजेस्ट कि होइन यो प्रोग्रामिङ ल्याङ्ग्वेज गर अथवा यो स्किल चाहिँ तिमीसँग हुनुपर्छ भन्ने केही सजेसन छ नेपालको मार्केटको लागि अथवा ब्रोडर पर्सपेक्टिभमा बाहिरै काम गर्ने हो भने पनि है मोस्ट अफ देम विल गो अब्रड है मोस्ट अफ देम वान्ट टु गो अब्रड दे वान्ट टु वर्क फर कपल अफ इयर्स इन नेपाल अनि त्यसपछि बाहिर जान खोज्छन् सो के छ त सजेसन होइन कि कसरी प्रिपेयर गर्ने त होइन बाहिर गएर मास्टर्स गर्छन् अनि दे वान्ट टु वर्क लाइक यु डिड है केही सजेसन छ त्यस्तो?
I mean, like I've been out of like Nepalese job market for a long time. I've like no idea what's the situation right there. Maybe it's really tough. Maybe some of you guys, students, have already applied and like seen how the situation is like. So एउटा भने चाहिँ नि beggars can't be choosers. And if the like market is really tough, then whatever you get, you have to pick it up, I think, even if you don't like it, just for the sake of like having some experience and it's just a stepping stone. Basically, you do something, you learn something, and you just apply that learning, and just it's like a selling point for your another step, a higher step, and that just keeps on continuing in your life. It does not stay like that in like a particular office. Like if you think about any career development, that's how you would go and you would pretty much grow. So think of it in that way and it will be much more easier, right? And hopefully you'll get a job where you enjoy it, doing what you do, right? It's pretty much about like the people who you work with that will make you grow up or bring you down. And technology, I really don't focus on technology actually. And this is purely in the context of like US market, man. Like Nepal might be different, right? किनभने यहाँ चाहिँ in a like decent company, I would say, they don't really care about what languages you use. They're looking for, can you solve the problem? Problem solving techniques. Do you have that or not? And if so happens that whatever language they are using, it's a like icing on the cake one. So the main चीज चाहिँ what they're looking for is problem solving techniques.
Okay, so कुन ल्याङ्ग्वेज सँग सरकार छैन खासै होइन बिकज ल्याङ्ग्वेजेस प्लेटफर्म्स दे किप चेन्जिङ होइन अहिलेको ऱ्यापिड यो जुन टेक्नोलोजीमा चेन्जेसमा त 6-8 महिनामा नयाँ आइरहेको हुन्छ होइन सो कम्पनीज मोस्ट अफ द बिग कम्पनीज होइन यु लाइक यु सेड दे डोन्ट फोकस अन भनौँ न स्पेसिफिकल्ली एकदमै भनौँ न यही ल्याङ्ग्वेज जानेको छ अथवा जाभै आउँछ, PHP आउँछ, एन्ड्रोइडै आउँछ भनेर भन्नुभन्दा पनि दे आर सर्चिङ फर अलिकति लङ टर्म सस्टेन गर्ने खालको जस्तै प्रब्लम सल्भिङ स्किल होइन। एन्ड इम्प्लोयर्स सुड बी एबल टु सल्भ प्रब्लम्स द्याट मे अराइज इन द कम्पनी होइन, काम गर्दै जाँदाखेरि रादर देन कि उसलाई PHP कति लेभलको आउँछ होइन। तर पनि अब भनौँ न, अब कम्पनी चाहिँ बेस्ड अन PHP को प्रोजेक्ट गरेर छ भने डेफिनेटली PHP आउँछ भने त लेस टाइम टु ट्रेन द्याट इम्प्लोइ होइन, इट विल टेक लेस टाइम। त्यही भएर पनि एउटा बेनिफिट चाहिँ हुन्छ, तर दे डोन्ट फोकस टु मच अन द्याट होइन। त्यही भएर जे गर्ने त्यो चाहिँ अलिकति स्किलफुल हुनु पर्यो आफू चाहिँ।
Right. It's one way to gauge the company. If like anywhere, whenever you're applying for a job, if they're like prepackaged, if they need a prepackaged person, then that means that they are not willing to invest too much into you. But if you're willing to take somebody who has like problem solving techniques and willing to teach you languages and technologies that they're using, that means that they're willing to invest in you, right? Which is much better. So you should think in that way. I have like been through quite a bit of interviews back here. None of them, I'm not even kidding, none of them like when they say, okay, solve this problem, usually it's a whiteboard problem. You have to write pseudocode, but in some cases they'll actually say, okay, choose a language of your preference and then solve the problem in that language. So it's like really left up to you which language you want to use.
Okay. Ani Devin, you have gone through, I know that, you have gone through numerous interviews, right? र कति त हुन्छ नि, अब आई नो द्याट your skill level is really good है, having worked with you, त्यही पनि भनौँ न, अब गएर त्यहाँ काम गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ you have to face होइन, you have to apply so many companies होइन, अनि त्यसमध्ये कस्तो रेस्पोन्स आउँछ त? डु दे रेडिली कल यु फर इन्टरभ्युज अर के छ त, कस्तो स्ट्रगल हुन्छ त्यहाँ?
So this could be really subjective, right? And like I can only tell from my experience. Think of it as a pyramid structure, right? Pyramid structure on base, it just keeps on it's tapering towards an end point. They say you will be applying for, I'm not even kidding, hundreds of companies, hundreds, right? You should. And out of 100, maybe 10 will respond to you, right? Out of 10, maybe 5 you land interview. Out of 5, maybe 2 you do really well, and out of like 2, maybe hopefully you'd get 2 or 3 offers, or at least 1 offer. So it's definitely that way. But having said, again, I'm saying it's very subjective. Most of the case, this will come true. Or maybe you're really exceptionally well, and then in that case, you just land wherever you try to apply the job for, right? And the best case scenario for you is if you have 2 or 3 offers at your hand. That way you can negotiate the best salary, right? That's always known.
तिमीले महर्षिमा जस्तै इन यो केस होइन, अब महर्षिबाट चाहिँ सेकेन्ड इयरको चाहिँ उनीहरूको कस्तो हुन्छ, प्लेसमेन्ट के हुन्छ है उनीहरूको, सो यु हेभ टु गो एन्ड वर्क समवेयर, त्यसको लागि चाहिँ कतिको गाह्रो भएको थियो? अगेन डिड यु अप्लाई टु लट्स अफ कम्पनीज? अहिले भने जस्तै 100-150 नै एप्लाई गर्नु परेको थियो?
Right. So initially, because you're like really fresh, right? Like उनीहरूको choice पनि अब usually people who already have experience in their own country, right? They would prefer that. It's less to invest. It's not 100% true that if they have to spend as much less money on you as possible, that's ideal for them if you think about it in that way, right? Students are they have to sponsor H1B and stuff like that, which is extra cost. That's why maybe it's difficult to get response when you're first applying. That doesn't mean that you don't get response. It's just difficult, right? There's definitely lots of companies who are like really willing. Actually, Amro company, or they go to the universities and actually pick up fresh students. That's a year-wise plan to invest in students. So there's that going as well. So don't get discouraged. That's the key point. If you're like not hearing back, just keep at it, and it will come through, right?
So let me make this clear, right? H1B भनेको चाहिँ वर्क स्टुडेन्टले चाहिँ टेम्पोररी वर्क भिजा हैन, आफ्नो स्टुडेन्ट भिजाबाट चाहिँ
well, not necessarily, right? That is later in the job market. Initially, let's assume that you took the same path that I did, so you're doing your master's or bachelor's or whatnot. And at the tail end of the course, उनीहरूले चाहिँ CPT र OPT भन्ने offer गर्छ युनिभर्सिटीहरूले. This is curricular curricular practical training, and I don't know what's the full form of the other one. Until saying university, they give you the authorization to work in a company, right? And that I think lasts for, they can renew it for, I think 3 years. I could be wrong. Basically, whenever you're applying for a job, whatever you were taught on, it should correlate. हुन्छ नि अब totally unrelated to office or work environment, they have chance to deny you, which is pretty rare. Chances are you are going to apply in software company anyways, and it's somehow related. त्यो भइसकेपछि चाहिँ after that thing you can do only for like 3 years, like I said. I think they can renew it for a couple of times, and after that you cannot be in the CPT or OPT anymore. By that time, the company wherever you're working should apply for H1B visa, which is the work visa. And the H1B, they can renew it for again 3 or 4 times. The H1B is slightly longer duration. Every time they renew, it's for 3 or 4 years. When you're at that level, when a company is already willing to sponsor you H1B, during that time, you should definitely communicate with the HR. Once you file my H1B, you should also file if you want to be a resident. I'm just bringing this up. If you don't want to be a resident, then this does not apply to you. But if you do, then you should negotiate with your HR, like when will you file for my permanent residency? Usually H1B उनीहरूले file गर्छ, and at the time of renewal, what they do is renew your H1B as well, and then apply for your permanent residency as well. And for Nepalese people, I think it takes around a year or a half to get that. It's much more tougher for Indian folks because it takes around 10 to 15 years, from what I heard. And so that ties into the company as well. If you're joining a company, make sure that you really like the culture, the company, and the work. If you do it just for like H1B from H1B perspective or PR perspective, then you're gonna not enjoy staying here, right? And so if you have a good company, a decent people to work with, then it will be more relaxing for you, right? Less worrisome. The problem is once it's fire at will here. They could fire you any moment without any reason. So if that happens, you have about a month to find another company to sponsor you H1B, right? That process will get renewed. It's not like हुन्छ नि के गरे तिम्रो first company तिम्रो PR green card apply गर्यो, for whatever reason they laid you off, then the second company, I think you would have to start from the scratch. So that's why make sure you pick decent companies.
So let me अलिकति त्यसलाई उ गरौँ है त. So as a fresher हैन, अब मैले गएर अमेरिकामा मास्टर्स गरेँ, अनि त्यसपछि एज अ पार्ट अफ भनौँ न सिपिटी भन्यो तिमीले, त्यसपछि मैले म गएर चाहिँ कुनै अर्गनाइजेसनमा इन्भल्भ हुन्छु, अनि मैले पढेको कामको रिलेटेड म काम आई स्टार्ट वर्क हो. अनि आफ्टर सर्टेन टाइम द्याट स्ट्याटस भनौँ न अब स्टुडेन्ट स्ट्याटसबाट चाहिँ अब वर्क स्ट्याटसमा अथवा प्रोफेसनल वर्क स्ट्याटसमा H1B मा कन्भर्ट हुन्छ.
Correct, yes.
And then after some time, हैन, अब H1B चाहिँ like you said almost about 3 years जस्तोमा चाहिँ रिन्यू गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ. सो 3 वर्ष जस्तो 3 वर्षसम्मै काम गरेर रिन्यू नै गर्नुपर्ने स्टेटमा हुन्छ कि अथवा बिचमा पनि गएर कम्पनीले चाहिँ अब भनौँ न यु क्यान नेगोसिएट विथ द कम्पनी प्रब्लली हैन, पिआर को लागि एप्लाई गर्न थाल्दा पनि भयो नि त हैन.
हुन्छ, राइट.
है.
Yeah, that's true. Like yeah, go ahead.
And that takes around 1.5 years है नेपालीको लागि चाहिँ, नेपाली नेसनलको लागि चाहिँ.
Yes.
So okay. अनि लाइक यु सेड हैन, अब कम्पनी चुज गर्दाखेरि डिसेन्ट हुनुपर्छ भन्छौँ. अनि हामीमा चाहिँ कस्तो छ भने जस्तै अब भनौँ न मेरै साथीहरू पनि अब ठुल्ठुलो कम्पनीमा काम गर्ने भन्ने छन् हैन, माइक्रोसफ्टतिर जाने, अमेजनमा काम गरेर छन् हैन. सो अनि मलाई बट हामीले सुरुदेखि नै कन्भर्सेसन हुँदाखेरि यु हेभ अलवेज स्टक विथ अलिकति रिजनेबल साइजमा जाउँ हैन भन्ने छ. सो स्टुडेन्टलाई चाहिँ ठुल्ठुलो कम्पनीमा गएको ठिक कि हैन, अब अमेजनतिर, माइक्रोसफ्टतिर, गुगलतिर गए ठिक कि एउटा डिसेन्ट साइजको स्टार्टअप भन्ने कि अब सानो साइजको कम्पनीमा गरेको ठिक त, स्टार्टअप पनि भनौँ न ल हैन. सो के हुन्छ त सिनेरियो, which one would you prefer or which one would you recommend?
So I think I would recommend the big company, right? किनभने the big companies are flush with cash, they're willing to invest in you. And they already have those process set up, and they have like thousands and thousands of employees. They have already done this process. They already have lawyers, everything. So they know the process. Startup is also amazing opportunity. Don't get me wrong, if you pick the right startup, right? Like for example, Facebook was a startup at one point. Like imagine if you worked on Facebook, you'd be a millionaire by now because of the stock option. So it's not a bad option. The problem is startups are usually VC funded, so they have like set amount of cash to burn and produce the output. And if they burn the cash and do not produce the output, then the startup is going to collapse. That means like, people are going to get, laid and stuff like that, laid off, right? So you should be really careful about which startups you pick. If you have to pick a startup, then you should be really passionate about the work they are doing, and you really believe that this is going to be a success. Then you can definitely apply for a startup. Having said that, the problem is the startup work because they're not like high in cash flow. They might not be willing to do like what do you call it, the sponsorship for H1B and green card and stuff like that. So just make sure if you are interviewing and if you are getting an offer, make those things as part of the offer as well, so that they are legally obliged to file for your H1B and green card in the future.
ओके सो काम चाहिँ फेरि सानो कम्पनीमा सिकिन्छ है धेरै किनभने
Yes.
धेरै डेडिकेटेड मान्छे अब भने लाइक यु सेड अब फन्डिङै थोरै हुन्छ धेरैजना एक्सपर्ट्सहरू अथवा धेरै पोजिसन नहुने पनि हुनसक्छ सो एउटाले धेरै काम गराउनु पर्ने हुन्छ होइन सो काम वाइज चाहिँ बढी सिकिन्छ बट लाइक यु सेड होइन अब रिस्क चाहिँ हुन्छ होइन एउटा सर्टेन अमाउन्ट अफ क्यापिटल लिएर कम्पनी रन गरेर हुन्छ त्यो चाहिँ भोलि भनौँ न स्टार्टअपको प्रोडक्टले राम्रो गर्न सक्यो भने अब माथि धेरै माथि पनि गइयो होइन लाइक एभ्री कम्पनी वाज अ स्टार्टअप होइन अहिलेको ठुल्ठुलो कम्पनी तर आउट अफ 100 probably होइन 80, 85, 90 त फेलै हुन्छन्.
Yes, like there is actually data showing that 80% of the startups fail.
80%. It is wise to go for bigger companies होइन बिगर कम्पनीजमा फेरि अलिकति बोर्ड भएर पछि जब स्विच गर्ने पनि छन् क्या फेरि है अब यहाँ त कस्तो भयो भने कामै भएन होइन यतिकै बसिरहनु परिरहेछ हुन त स्यालेरी त आउँछ त्यही पनि कामै भएन यार भने जस्तो पनि धेरै सुन्छु क्या युएसको साथीहरूको त्यही भएर ओके सुरुमा चाहिँ इट वुड बी अ वाइज पिक टु गो फर बिगर कम्पनीज होइन त्यसपछि अब पिआरै आइसकेपछि चाहिँ अब द्याट इज अप टु अब होइन अरू केही कुरामा
अनि अर्को बेनिफिट अफ बिगर कम्पनीज इफ यु आर लाइक हुन्छ नि लाइक गोइङ इन अ लाइक hopefully you get offered in a well-renowned company. Once that happens, then it's like really easy to find job in other companies. Like timro resume ma, if you have Microsoft or Amazon, then all the other companies want you, right? So even though like I have a couple of friends who have gone to Amazon and there's like, it's very top-down approach and it's hierarchical. This the structure, it's difficult to work. You don't have the freedom. Usually, most of the software companies, the structure is flat. So there are definitely levels like lead, developer, manager, the direction of communication is not top-down. Usually, everybody contributes to the discussion and contributes to the solution. So that, personally, for me, I like that kind of environment. I guess like natural human tendency to hate hierarchy in one way or other, and you're also contributing more to those companies, right? Your ideas gets picked up, your ideas matter. Whereas a Tulo company, maybe there's like an architect who's really good, and it's like just say, okay, certain solution has to be done this way, you do it. I'm not saying that's a wrong way to do it. It's just like it becomes monotonous because you're just like following somebody's path or kind of command, something like that. So it's pros and cons. It's again very subjective. Some people really like order, defined order. Some people don't. So it all depends on you.
त्यसो हो भने ठुल्ठुलो कम्पनीमा पनि अगेन ल्याङ्ग्वेज स्पेसिफिक अथवा प्लेटफर्म स्पेसिफिक भन्दा पनि दे वान्ट समन हु क्यान सल्भ प्रब्लम्स होइन सो दिपेन वाट डज इट मिन क्या प्रब्लम सल्भिङ भनेको चाहिँ के त आखिरमा होइन जस्तै कुनै इक्जाम्पलबाट इलस्ट्रेट गर्न सकिन्छ किनभने हामी सबैले त प्रब्लम सल्भ गरिराखेकै हुन्छ नि एभ्रिडे लाइफमा होइन कोडिङ गर्दाखेरि पनि केही न केही भइराखेकै हुन्छ नि भन्ने हुन्छ तर कम्पनीले खोज्ने खालको प्रब्लम सल्भिङ स्किल भनेको के त what does it mean?
It's really interesting the way like there's two approaches of doing this, right? Like bigger companies, like saying for them the problem solving is algorithm. Do you know the algorithms or not? Data structure or not? If you have like millions and millions of data, and if you have to aggregate data, how would you go about it? So त्यसैले त्यसमा चाहिँ algorithm plays a very vital role, हैन? So it's very true for all the like big companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft. They always go for algorithms and data structure. So if you're good in algorithms and data structure, you're gold. Other company, for example, भनौँ न हाम्रै company, it's like it's not small by any account, but it's not like well-known company as well. Usually what we do is we just scan through their resume. And most of the question actually comes from the resume rather than from outside. They'll say, oh, you have done XYZ project, right? Well, from XYZ project, you had this problem. How did you solve it? And usually the problems are pretty much similar in all the companies. Like how do you manage session, your database stuff, and you have big data, how do you handle it? So it goes in that direction. And त्यति बेलामा चाहिँ I guess त्यस्तो इन्टरभ्यूमा चाहिँ when you have a job experience, it becomes really easy because it's very relatable. त्यस्तो कुराहरू, which personally held true for me when I first applied for a job. किनभने the questions they asked were exactly the problems we were solving in Whirling Technologies.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, and like if you're really interested, then there are like tons of websites like Lead Code and stuff like that. There's what you call newsletter where they just give you all the questions that were asked, and these big companies, they also provide you the solution if you pay for it. I don't recommend paying for it. You usually can find the answers somewhere. It can be really overwhelming. There are like thousands and thousands of questions. You cannot prepare for all of them. The funny thing is, like I've asked this to other people as well. And interview, they ask really tough questions of like data algorithm stuff. But when you're doing the actual work, you rarely use those things, right? Because most of the companies love to ask about, oh, big O notation, like, how much time would it take and stuff. Like when you're working, you're not thinking about big O notations. You're thinking about solving the problem first and then optimizing it later. So that way it's a bit unfair when the interviews are too tough, but the work you're doing is actually does not pertain to the interview questions at all. So that's the nature of the game, right? So if you want to be in a big companies, you definitely have to be good in data structure algorithms. And there are other decent companies too where it doesn't matter. It's just like problem solving techniques in general.
र जेनरल कन्सेप्ट चाहिँ फेरि कस्तो छ भने अब डेटा स्ट्रक्चर्स आर सपोज टु बी डिफिकल्ट भन्ने छ क्या कम्प्युटिङमा चाहिँ किनभने अब सर्टिङ भयो सर्चिङ भयो देयर आर सो मेनी एल्गोरिदम्स होइन जस्तै अब हरेक वर्ष नयाँ नयाँ एल्गोरिदमहरू आइरहेको हुन्छ सो जेनरली गाह्रो पोर्सन यसलाई आउँछ भने यो उसलाई इन्टरभ्यू लिँदाखेरि उसलाई चाहिँ जहाँ गाह्रो क्वेसनको आन्सर आउँछ भने चाहिँ गर्छ होला नि त भन्ने अजम्सन पनि हुन्छ क्या त्यो होला है त्यही भएर मोस्ट अफ द प्लेसेस इभन नेपालमा पनि होइन अब हामीले नै वर्ल्डिङमा चाहिँ इन्टरभ्यू दिँदाखेरि पनि यु रिमेम्बर यजुवेन्द्र होइन यु वाज आस्किङ एल्गोरिदम क्वेसन होइन मलाई चाहिँ गएर ल बोर्डमा ल यस्तो यस्तो हुन्छ ल एल्गोरिदम लेख अभिनव भनेर भने हो होइन अनि त्यसपछि स्वापिङको सोधा हो होइन विदाउट युजिङ भेरिएबल्स कसरी स्वाप गर्न सक्छौ यस्तो कुराहरू हो होइन सो त्यस्तो खाले गर्न सक्छ भने चाहिँ जेनरली चाहिँ जस्तो पनि सिचुएसन ह्यान्डल गर्न सक्छ भन्ने पनि हुन्छ है सो अब रियली नै युज हुन्छन् होला होइन त्यो पनि अब अगेन द्याट इज सब्जेक्टिभ होइन कस्तो खालको काम गर्ने कतिपय कम्पनीमा चाहिँ अब एल्गोरिदम बेस पनि हुन्छ होला होइन तर मोस्टमा चाहिँ त्यो नहुने होला कि होइन किनभने हामीले पनि वर्ल्डिङमा चाहिँ एल्गोरिदमै स्पेसिफिक भएर त केही गरेनौँ त्यस्तो होइन भ्यालिडेसनहरू नै थियो क्लाइन्ट साइड सर्भर साइड अथवा पिएचपीकै पेजेसहरू बनाएर बसेको थियो मोस्ट अफ द टाइम चाहिँ है सो अलिकति सब्जेक्टिभै भयो त्यो है अलराइट लगभग एन्डतिरै छौँ अब दिवेन है म धेरै उ गर्दिनँ जस्तै होइन अब अनि इफ एनीवन हेज एनी क्वेसन्स है आइ एम टकिङ टु माई स्टुडेन्ट्सहरू है इफ यु हेभ एनी क्वेसन्स केही त्यस्तो खालको छ द्याट यु वुड लाइक टु नो फ्रम दिवेन है अनि लाइक आई सेड हि हेज लट्स अफ इयर्स अफ एक्सटेन्सिभ प्रोग्रामिङ एक्सपिरियन्स क्या नेपाल बसेर पनि राम्रो प्रोग्रामरमै गनिने हो होइन अनि उहाँ गएर पनि इज डुइङ रियली वेल है र भनौँ न अब नेपालमा पनि राम्रै इन्कम थियो उसको युएसमा पनि अहिले चाहिँ राम्रै नै छ होइन एउटा डिसेन्ट डेभलपरले कतिसम्म एक्सपेक्ट गर्न सकिन्छ डेभलपर डिपेन्ड जस्तै अब वेजेसको कुरामा अथवा अगेन द्याट इज सब्जेक्टिभ होइन कुन टेक्नोलोजीमा काम गर्छ के छ पनि होला सायद तर एभरेजमा चाहिँ कतिसम्म हुन्छ होला त किनभने इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कुरा छ
So
त्यो
I was smiling because back home in Nepal, I was making decent. I guess in our times that was decent.
डिसेन्ट
Like
हुन्छ
standard,
त
probably
अहिलेको
doesn't
फ्रेसर्सले
match.
त्यति खान्छन्
Right. So I'll be honest with you guys, right? I don't think I'm that good in like programming. I enjoy programming, right? Or I'm not like concerned. I've seen people who are like amazing. Um, and that has been my story my whole life. Sometimes I kind of reflect back, like, how did I reach here? I was like, I get amazed that even I made it here, because I'm pretty sure like most of you are much, much, much more smarter than I am. The new generations are usually much more smarter than the generation prior to them. Nepalको कन्टेक्स्टमा चाहिँ I have no idea again. तर US को कन्टेक्स्टमा चाहिँ it definitely depends on which state you find the job. हुन्छ नि. So US को left or right? So the coastal areas usually pay better. किनभने the expenses are much higher पनि हुन्छ नि. अब California, Bostonतिर तिम्रो rent is expensive. Per month for maybe a bed and bath could be around $2,000, right? And depending on like, you would probably, if you want to stay here, you probably want to stay near like a public transportation भएको ठाउँतिर. So I'm not going to lie, it's definitely expensive in these cities. And so your salaries tend to be higher as well to counter that. If if they don't pay you, then you cannot sustain your life, right? In the middle, those areas are much more cheaper. And त्यसैले your salary also tends to be lower. For example, Texas-तिर हुन्छ नि, it's really cheap. Housing-हरू यिनीहरू सबै cheap छ. So probably expect your salary like, let's say, I'm just making this up. Let's say in like California, right? You paid like 170 or something average. And when you go to mid, maybe it will go down to maybe 80 or 90. And even in 80, 90,000 per year, your lifestyle would be much better in that price point in the middle of the US. And the same kind of lifestyle could be sustained at that salary in the coastal area. So that's definitely true. You are taxed based on where you live. So let's say मेरो job चाहिँ Massachusettsमा, तर if I go to, let's say I decide to move to Iowa for whatever reason, then the company will immediately change your tax code and also restructure your salary. So you cannot keep your salary from one state to another state. Usually that's true. Maybe because of pandemic stuff, maybe they want to keep their employee now and maybe they can manage the salary. But generally that is true. And so salary it doesn't mean that you are getting low quality of like life. It's just that things are much cheaper there. So that's why your salary tends to be slightly low. California, like everything is exorbitantly expensive. So your salary tends to be higher there. So that's how it is.
Okay. So it depends.
So sorry, I think I didn't ask the question like entry level, right? So that also depends on location, right? So if you are in like the California, Boston level, I would expect entry level to be 100, 120, right? I would say ranges from 80 to 120, right? It's good, it's decent. In the mid, maybe 60, 70, you'd start from there.
अनि दिपेन जस्तै उनीहरूले कम्पनीले चाहिँ भनौँ न अब इम्प्लोइजहरू खोज्दाखेरि चाहिँ केही स्पेसिफिक खोज्छन् जस्तै प्रब्लम सल्भिङ स्किल त भयो तर धेरै जस्तो चाहिँ अब एडभर्टिजमेन्टमा हायर गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अहिले चलेको टेक्नोलोजी के छ त्यहाँ चाहिँ केही छ स्पेसिफिक धेरै टेक्नोलोजी डिपेन्डेन्ट त नहोला त्यही पनि अब एआई मसिन लर्निङ पाइथन त्यस्तो केही
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely certain languages like web department JavaScript is the king, right? And timro data science ma Python is the king. And then there's Cloudsphere where Azure, AWS stuff comes, right? So again, I can only speak for my domain, right, which is mostly web application where pretty much JavaScript, any framework, Angular, Ember, React, and then decent knowledge of like backend, like databases and Java, right? It's pretty base. Maybe you are into gaming. I don't know what language is best for gaming or mobile app development. I think for Android and iOS, I really don't know what language there are. As I said, if you go to LinkedIn and look for these jobs, they never ever tell you like these specific languages. They only say, hey, we are looking for people in different arenas. And usually, maybe they interview for a position, but they find you better in the other position. So in that way, they kind of allocate you. That's the reason they don't tell you about specific technology as well. Maybe your backend really strong, maybe your front end really strong, so they don't want to lose you as a candidate if you do not fit for a particular role. There could be other 10 roles where you could be really good at.
Okay. अनि लगभग है अब we are at the end of धेरै question त छैन मसँग.
Actually, I want to add to that one. I remember talking to you about this. I really want to bring this up for you guys. अनि यहाँ चाहिँ कस्तो हुन्छ भने the recruiters, the companies that directly contact you, and the recruiter is, I guess, the most popular. So sometimes the company directly contacts you, which is really good. It means that they've like really looked into your resume and they really like you. Resume recruiters are basically selling people. Like if I were a recruiter, I'll contact 10 of you guys. I'll get your resume and I'll try to match you with other jobs that I have in my list. So there's a commission for them. Also, lastly, which is a really risky one, which I've seen, and I don't want to throw like specific country reason under the bus. So usually it tends to be like Indian companies. So they want to hire you as a contractor. So what that means is they have a specific contract with a company, right? Where they use a specific technology and they need like, let's say 10 people for 6 months duration, right? And so they will like try to reach out to you and they'll like basically say, oh, okay, Java, you can do C# as well. I'll just say, you are like very proficient in C#. And they try to sell your resume like that. And now you're stuck in a place where you really don't know the language, but since this is a contracting like limited time frame job, so they really expect output from you. This is technically like these are the people who are actually looking for XYZ technology because that's the one thing they're using, and that they want to get a job done in like X amount of time. Usually it spans like 6 months to a year. So I'll really warn you guys to avoid those situations. Whenever a job is a contract, be really careful. Contractual job ma चाहिँ तिम्रो hourly pay rate एकदम high हुन्छ. So it looks really lucrative. So usually the contracting company is taking maybe like 80% of the actual pay and you're getting 20% of it. And the worst case is after the contract is done, they really don't give a shit about you, right? Your work is done, move on, right? We really don't care. Like maybe in the future, there'll be something coming along. In that case, we'll contract. So they have no obligation to file for your H-1B or green card, right? Because they just need you for that specific period, for that specific project. And maybe you're lucky, like maybe they get another project which like really matches with the prior one. But I wouldn't, trust them, just put everything based on luck. So that you should be careful about.
Okay. Deepen, एकजना क्वेसन छ है अनि यसले के गरेका छन् भने जस्तै मास्टर्स गर्दा गर्दै मैले भनौँ न एआई को फिल्डमा चाहिँ मास्टर्स गरिरहेको छु भने त्यही फिल्डमा चाहिँ वर्क एप्लाई गर्न मिल्छ त कि पढाइ सिध्याउनु पर्छ?
So the concept of CPT OPT is like usually university, you have to talk with the university. At the end of the course, उनीहरूले चाहिँ तिमीलाई offer गर्छ and it has to align. Like if you apply for a job which is AI related, it should align to your studies and they will approve that job. It's not like it's two-pronged. First of all, you have to get the job, and second is university should also approve that you actually qualify for that because you took the certain courses. So that's how it's done. Did I answer the question?
Yes, हैन अब as far as I know हैन अब सिधै काम गर्न त पढेको बेलामा चाहिँ मिल्दैन किनभने त्यो भिजा स्ट्याटसै अर्कै हुन्छ हैन.
Exactly.
तर अब काम पाइसकेपछि भनौँ न अब फर्स्ट इयरमै त गाह्रै हुन्छ होला कम्पनीले पनि किन यतिकै दिने हैन. अब चिनेको मान्छेको भनौँ न अब नेपालीको कम्युनिटी धेरै छ अहिले त्यहाँ पनि हैन. चिनेको मान्छेको कतैबाट पायो भने चाहिँ अब पढाइलाई नै कन्टिन्यू गर्ने हैन, पढ्ने भिजामै कन्टिन्यू गरेर 20 आवर्स अ विक प्रोबब्ली हैन काम गर्न पनि मिल्छ होला. अब त्यसलाई प्रोफेसनली नै भिजा कन्भर्ट गर्न चाहिँ अगेन कम्पनीले स्पोन्सर गरेर पनि सम्भव हुन्छ होला. तर कामसँग र पढाइसँग फेरि ब्यालेन्स गर्नलाई गाह्रो हुन सक्छ त्यो. है।
That's true.
त्यही भएर अब ठिक छ।
So if you are thinking of like हुन्छ नि पढ्ने पनि अनि काम पनि गर्ने, that's I don't think that would be possible. किनभने like I said हुन्छ नि त्यो universally decide गर्छ when you can apply for CPT or OPT. It's not like, oh, I just found somebody who's willing to take AI and I want to work there. I don't think it works like that.
तर फेरि के चाहिँ हुन सक्छ भने दिवेन जस्तै प्रोबेबली हैन, म मास्टर्सलाई गएँ हैन, मैले इन्ट्री चाहिँ लिएँ युएसमा, त्यसपछि चाहिँ अब भनौँ न मलाई मेरो चिनेको नातेदारको कसैले चाहिँ काम अफर गर्नुहुन्छ अनि म जान्छु भने नि अब पढाइ ड्रप गरेर काम चाहिँ फेरि गर्न पाइयो हैन, त्यो स्ट्याटस चाहिँ चेन्ज हुन्छ।
Yes, if they are sponsoring H1B, yes, you no longer need to study, I guess.
त्यही त। अनि अगेन स्टडी र वर्क त टफै हुन्छ है, यहाँ सुरजले क्वेसन सोधेका छन् हैन, वर्क ब्यालेन्स गर्न कतिको गाह्रो हुन्छ मास्टर्सको स्टडी, टफै हुन्छ मास्टर्सको स्टडी, योर एक्सपिरियन्स कस्तो छ? व्हाट इज योर एक्सपिरियन्स?
So like the good thing about Maharishi University is they really don't believe in stressing you out. So when I was there, it was really relaxing, to be honest. Don't get me wrong, they have like decent coursework and they used to give us like projects and stuff like that. So attitude pretty relaxed. If you cannot complete it, that's fine. The way they thought is the most efficient mind is the well-rested mind, right? So they didn't believe in you like pressuring with giving you 10 projects and finishing it in a certain deadline. So in that regards, I think I was kind of lucky. This most stressful part I found was like during those times where you had to get the job offer, especially the student visa. That was in I think the most stressful time. And I kid you not, for about I guess a month, I probably applied for 100 companies pretty much every week, and I'm not even making that number. I checked. I had applied to that many companies. So that was the stressful part. Once you because I had decent work experience in Nepal, right? The work itself actually wasn't that stressful. It was a really good learning experience for me. So I wouldn't worry too much about if you have experience in Nepal. Whatever they're doing in Nepal, they're exactly doing the same thing here as well. There's not much difference, to be honest. The way they go about it might be different, right? Right, landing that first job is the most difficult part.
So that probably answers है सञ्जितको क्वेसन पनि, इन्ट्री लेभलको जब कतिको पाइन्छ भन्दाखेरि डिपेन्ड्स हैन, हामी सबैको त्यो छ के। जस्तै फ्यु डेज ब्याक वी ह्याड अनदर हैन, अब विल्सनको थियो, आई रिमेम्बर हैन, विल्सन ह्याड टु अप्लाई फर सो मेनी कम्पनीज हैन, अनि नेपालै आएर पनि वी ह्याड टु एप्लाई फर सो मेनी कम्पनीज है, त्यो छ त्यो अप्सन्सहरु, त्यो स्ट्रगल छ, डिफिकल्टी छ। अब बाहिर त झन् कति कम्पनी हुन्छन् हैन, अनि इट इज नट जस्ट us we are that are applying to that company, hundreds like us are applying to that company हैन, अनि उनीहरुको पनि धेरै नै रिक्वेस्ट हुन्छ हैन, धेरै नै अफरहरु उनका रिक्वेस्ट आइरहेको हुन्छ कामको लागि हैन, एप्लाई गर्न हुन्छ। सो सुरुको पार्ट चाहिँ टफ छ, लाइक यु सेड है, सुरुको
पार्ट टफ छ, अनि usually the people who are willing to take you are not willing to pay you higher because they have to invest more money in you, हुन्छ नि, because you are still a student and stuff like that. Again, it's entry level job. So that becomes difficult. Like I said, everything is a stepping stone, right? Surma, yes, you might get like pretty shitty job, but at least you got something, and you can stay there for 5-6 months, gain some idea, and start applying somewhere else. It's not a big deal. You don't have to be loyal to a company unless you like them, right? So that's how I guess if you think in that way, maybe it will be less stressful, right? Maybe your first couple of 4-5 months is really stressful and shitty in this particular job. Just think about it like after 6 months when I'm going to leave it for a new company, which is much better, it'll be much better environment for me. This is what you're saying. I think it'll be better.
अनि नेपालमा जस्तै 1-2 वर्ष काम गरेर बाहिर जाने नै ट्रेन्ड छ अहिले पनि हैन, धेरै जना स्टुडेन्टको चाहिँ नेपालको जबको डाइरेक्ट एक्सपिरियन्स भन्दा पनि हैन, what seems fair is that you learn from your work in Nepal हैन, नेपालमा बसेर जुन काम गरिन्छ त्यसबाट पनि आफ्नो स्किल इम्प्रुभ गर्ने हैन, त्यो जति वर्ष यहाँ बसेर काम गरेछ त्यसले डाइरेक्टली उता चाहिँ ल भनौं न 2 वर्ष नेपाल बसेर काम गरेछ, म 2 वर्षको एक्सपिरियन्स हुन्छ युएसमा भन्ने भन्दा पनि त्यो नहुन पनि सक्छ हैन। तर यहाँ बसेर 2 वर्ष काम सिकेर जुन स्किल सिक्छौं हामी त्यसलाई चाहिँ बरु भ्यालु, त्यो चाहिँ बरु भ्यालुएबल हुन्छ उता काम पाइसकेपछि हैन।
Right, especially when you're applying for a job. Like I said, in any company or they just like to go through your resume and just say, see what you've done. That's the case now. When you have work experience, it becomes really easy. Again, मैले भन्न खोजेको होइन जबै गर्नुपर्छ भनेको चाहिँ होइन, तर it definitely makes things easier for you, right?
अनि मेरो पार्टबाट लास्ट क्वेसन है त डु सर्टिफिकेसन्स हेल्प जस्तै नेपाल बसेर भनौँ न अब कुनै प्रोग्रामिङको सर्टिफिकेट अथवा सिक्ने गरे
No, I remember this conversation, and so now when I was first applying in US, I didn't have any relative here. The most remote relative I could find was my brother-in-law's sister's husband, who used to work as a software developer. अनि मेरो दिदीले चाहिँ भन्थ्यो कि when he had gone to US, he had like full file with like all the certification he did. So I thought like this guy is super smart. So I reached out to him and asked him like, I'm coming to US. How what's the probability of me getting a job? It was the most depressing talk I had with this guy. He basically said, no, nothing works. Master's graduation doesn't work. Even if you do in the US, yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. So yeah, like usually, like whenever you're applying for the job, they only see, okay, you've done masters or bachelors. They don't ask you for like how much did you get in your bachelor's, or how much did you get your score in masters. They really don't care. I've never seen anybody in any of the company where they ask for my, okay, what's your results like? Like the only company, like I think, who asks for your score is I think Google. But I think they have also stopped doing it. And as part of certification, again, these are all cherry in the toppings, right? It's good. It's great if you have them. But I don't think that's a deciding factor for you to land a job.
Okay.
So once they have already decided, yeah, you're a good candidate, and then on top of it, you have certification, yeah, this looks good. So it's not like, oh, you have certification, I'll hire you. That's not going to be true.
All right, Deeven. This sums up है अब धेरै जसो क्वेसन सुरजले यहाँ लेख्न त लेखेको छैन होइन स्टुडेन्ट भिजामा कलेज फी पे गर्न एन्ड फर अदर स्टफको लागि वाट काइन्ड अफ वर्क क्यान बी फाइन अब यस्तो छ है सुरजहरू लेट मी आन्सर द्याट स्टुडेन्ट भिजामा कलेज फी चाहिँ तिर्न सकिन्न अब कि स्कलरसिप पाउनु पर्यो राम्रै होइन त्यो पनि अर्को एउटा क्वेसन आउँछ फेरि स्कलरसिप पाएर मात्र गएको राम्रो कि अथवा इफ यु क्यान अफोर्ड इट होइन एक्सपेन्सिभै हुन्छ है भनौँ नेपाली 30-35 लाखै पर्छ होला उसले पऱ्यो भने है अब अनलेस यु गेट स्कलरसिप है त्यही भएर सुरुमा स्कलरसिप चाहिँ बरु कसरी पाउने भन्ने अगेन द्याट इज अनदर पार्ट होइन हामीले अस्ति उसँग पनि सेलेस्टीसँगै कुरा गर्दाखेरि पनि अलिअलि कुरा भएको थियो होइन स्कलरसिपको पार्टहरूमा के थियो अर्को सेसन भएको थियो त्यो पनि है सो त्यही भएर स्टुडेन्ट भिजामै अब कलेज फी नै अथवा लिभिङ अब लिभिङ कस्ट पनि फेरि डिपेन्ड्स होइन कसरी बस्ने कतिजनासँग बस्ने के खाने कहाँ बस्ने अब अगेन लोकेसन अल्सो प्रिज भाइटल होइन कुन स्टेटमा बसिरहेको छ सो नर्मली चाहिँ स्टुडेन्ट भिजाबाटै पे गर्न चाहिँ गाह्रै हुन्छ होला कलेज फीहरू होइन सो I know you were saying something, Kate.
Like sadly, like I didn't I shouldn't say sadly. Luckily, I didn't have to experience that. But I have other friends here who were like in the same boat as you guys were. They were studying, and usually they would work part-time job in the vacation, summer vacation or whatnot. And it seemed like they were able to manage it from that. But I have not personally have gone through that, so I probably am not the right person to answer, but few of the guys seem to have managed with the part-time jobs. But again, I'm not the true source of information on that.
Okay. तिमीले चाहिँ कसरी म्यानेज गरेको थियौ त? How did you manage your Mercy's fee?
The Mercy is a really good plan actually. So based on your score and stuff like that, Mercy will say, okay, initially you'd pay like $4,000 or $6,000 or $2,000. And then once you, that's it. That's all you pay initially.
For 2 years.
And you do, yep, for 2 years. Then they provide you fooding and lodging as well, right? Everything included. And once you start the job, then your loan kicks in, right? So they will take a portion of your paycheck after you start working. So that way I didn't have to worry about paying my thing immediately as I was studying. So yeah.
भनेपछि सुरुमा चाहिँ आई नो द्याट दे टेक सम काइन्ड अफ एन एक्जाम है अनलाइन एक्जाम लिन्छ प्रोग्रामिङको अनि त्यसको बेसिसमा चाहिँ यु गेट दे डिसाइड वाट अमाउन्ट यु सुड पे होइन अनि यु पेड अराउन्ड 6,000 है फर द होल मास्टर्स
4,000 right yeah 4,000 initially right and त्यसपछि the total like there is no concept of scholarship pretty much everybody pays the full price the only thing is how much do you pay initially so I think I paid around 4,000 if I'm not mistaken from what I heard like the students who were really good at their academics paid around 2,000 that's the least I heard and so you study you stay there you eat their food everything they even give you stipend every week I think every month or every week it was $100 and once the CPT starts once you actually start making money then you pay off the loan that's how it goes
भनेपछि सुरुमा चाहिँ अपफ्रन्टमा चाहिँ त्यस्तो धेरै टेन्सन भएन तर पछि काम स्टार्ट गरिसकेपछि चाहिँ ए अनि आर यु डन विथ देम जस्तै हेभ यु क्लियर योर अब किनभने कहिले भयो पास 2013 तिर
12-13 तिर you're right I think I paid it off in like 2-3 years it was not much it was just 30,000 altogether yeah
that's also fair enough हैन अब सुरुमै तिर्नु परेन आफू मजाले पढ्यो हैन त्यसपछि अनि काम पाइसकेपछि पे गर्ने that's a good option I guess हैन
yeah that's amazing option actually right किनभने like if you believe I think most of us believe like we can do a decent job if you can do it in Nepal you can do it here and once you get the job if you have to pay it's not a big deal if you do not have any source of income and if you have to pay then that becomes like a troubling sign right if I not making money how am I supposed to pay money when you are making money then you pay the loan and I think there is also like forgiveness like if you for whatever reason let's say you got laid off or whatnot right and then you can reach out to the university saying that hey I don't have a job right now and they'll actually hold your loan for a couple of like months I think that was also in the program
All right, Deewen, thank you so much. Hey, अब तिमीलाई गाह्रो भइसक्यो होला त्यहाँ हेभी भइसक्यो बच्चा एक दिन
No, it's a pleasure, right?
So all in all, hey, thank you, Deewen, so much. अनि so from today onwards, we end the sessions. है हामीले अहिलेसम्म चाहिँ जति पनि इम्प्लोइमेन्ट रिलेटेड अथवा मार्केट प्रिपरेसन सेसन्सहरू गरेका थियौँ we will be ending it है र what you should take from these sessions is हैन अब I know that हैन अब as a student you may not have done really well हैन अथवा as a student you may have done really well हैन so दुईटैको लागि चाहिँ हैन अब सुरुमा एउटा इनिशियल एडभान्टेज हुन्छ राम्रोको लागि हैन but at the end of the day हैन you still भनौँ न अब lot of your work depends upon your skill र स्किललाई चाहिँ अझै पनि इम्प्रुभ गर्न सकिन्छ हैन किनभने अब एकाडेमिक पोर्सन हो हामी सबैले त्यही नै गरेका हौँ है तर भनौँ न एकाडेमिक्स छोडेर फिल्डमा गइसक्दाखेरि चाहिँ अनि स्किल पनि चाहिन्छ सो त्यसमा अझै पनि हैन 2-3 महिना लाएर अथवा सर्टेन टाइम स्पेन्ड गरेर इफ यु वान्ट टु इम्प्रुभ अझै पनि इम्प्रुभ गर्ने टाइम चाहिँ छ है अझै पनि इम्प्रुभ गर्न सकिन्छ है सो प्लान अकर्डिङली है त्यसपछि अब इफ वी क्यान हेल्प फ्रम अर्गनाइजेसन हैन केही गर्न सकिन्छ भने प्लिज लेट अस नो है अब कुनै एउटा स्पेशल ट्रेनिङहरू अथवा ग्रुपमा आउँछ भने है त्यो चाहिँ अथवा हैन इन्डिभिजुअली पनि कन्ट्याक्ट गर्दाखेरि हुन्छ है सो वी आर देयर टु सपोर्ट यु मार्केट अलिअलि आइडिया भयो होला नेपालको मार्केट फ्रिलान्सिङ मार्केट अथवा अब बाहिरकै मार्केट पनि हैन अब दिज आर जस्ट कस्तो भने रफली भनेको हो यो हैन सबै अब एक्ज्याक्टली त्यही नै हुनुपर्छ सबैलाई भन्ने पनि छैन हैन मेबी यु आर अ प्रोग्रामिङ सर्सर हैन एकदमै खतरा प्रोग्रामर होला रे हैन अब दिवेन हामीहरुभन्दा नि राम्रो हुन सक्छ नि त हैन द्याट इज पोसिबल सो त्यो हिसाबले पनि यु मे हेभ अ डिफरेन्ट एक्सपिरियन्स हैन तर अगेन स्किल चाहिँ बढाउँदै जाऊ है अनि नेपालमै बसेर पनि काम गर्ने सिक्ने अनि त्यसपछि एउटा राम्रो डिसेन्ट स्किल भइसकेपछि चाहिँ अथवा आफ्नो प्लान गरेपछि चाहिँ कहिलेसम्म गर्छौ एन्ड देन यु क्यान मुभ अहेड हैन आफ्नो करियर त्यो अनुसारले प्लान गर्न सकिन्छ है सो इफ यु हेभ एनी क्वेसन्स फर्दर क्वेसन्स छ भने अहिले सोध्दा हुन्छ अथवा यु क्यान इमेल इट टु मी हैन दिवेनसँगै रिलेटेड केही क्वेसन छ भने पनि यु क्यान इमेल इट टु मी अनि म आई विल कन्ट्याक्ट हिम एन्ड विल गिभ द आन्सर्स है सो अहिलेलाई चाहिँ दिस इज इट थ्याङ्क यू अल फर यर टाइम Deewen, thank you once again. So no problem. I hope we didn't disturb you.
No, it's like fun to do this.
Right? Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Bye.